folks. The Field and Garden Podcast is honored to be partnering with the Growing for Market magazine. They have been publishing practical ideas and information for direct market flower and vegetable growers for over 31 years. All the articles are written by farmers who get their hands dirty and know what they're doing. The magazine is still on the same mission as when the Flower Farmer book author Lynn Basinski founded this magazine back in 1992 to connect growers with the best ideas from other growers. There is dedicated flower content in every magazine, a decade's worth of back issues, and over 1,600 archived articles from writers like Aaron Benzenkane, Gretel Adams, Pamela and Frank Arnowski, and Jonathan and Megan Lease, all available on the website. With 10 new issues every year available on paper, digital, or both, you're guaranteed to find something to fine-tune your farm in growing for market. So if you do farmers markets, CSA, farm stands, pick your own, florist sales, or wholesaling, whether you're a commercial grower or you just want to grow like one, subscribe to Growing for Market for the nitty-gritty details of growing, marketing, and the business of local farming. And I have a special offer for you. Use the coupon code WORKSHOP to get 25% off any subscription to the original Farmer to Farmer magazine at growingformarket.com. Hey friends, welcome to the Field and Garden Podcast. It is your host and friend Lisa Mason Ziegler, and thanks for dropping in. Today we are talking about lessons learned and the required attached price, because there's a price for everything, y'all. Good or bad, there's usually a price, right? But before we jump in, hey, if you're new here, thanks so much. And you can learn more about the sponsor of this podcast, thegardenersworkshop.com, over on our website that is just packed with resources, ideas. We have our online garden shop, our 2 podcasts are over there, our blog, lots of how-to videos, our library of online courses. And if you find yourself in the need, we appreciate it when you consider us. So friends, I'm recording this in mid-November, heading into winter, and this is a really exciting time for me because I'm looking forward to the winter time of not harvesting. That's about the only thing a flower farmer's not doing this time of the year. And harvesting is kind of like the part of flower farming that really creates a lot of the work. So it's a great time, and I'm just looking forward to it. So I like to spend my winter doing a little bit of learning, because just because I didn't know about something doesn't mean that it doesn't apply to me. Then there are such opportunities available if only I'd known, or my best line, why didn't I think of that? All of these things are a result of not knowing about something. And unless you are continually putting yourself out there in the environment where it's going to benefit you to learn more, to see more, gain more wisdom, gain more knowledge, this list could go on and on. So what I've learned is that starting and being in business means that I have to continually expand my horizons. And in fact, that's not just to grow my business. That's in fact to keep my business. You have to stay up to date. And I mean, let's talk about business, right? So not only is there whatever the subject of your business is, right? Like for me, it's gardening and flower farming, right? But then you have the actual business itself. What does that mean? Licensing, insurance, bookkeeping, perhaps employees, regulations that related to your what your industry is or your business. I mean, we're talking about rules and requirements and laws. Then do you want to throw in new technology and opportunities that are coming along? Let me tell you, friends, if you ever stop learning and pursuing learning, it's kind of the beginning of the end, just like not cutting a cutting garden, right? So I use this least demanding season of my time during my year as this time that I try to really learn lessons before I'm looking back in my rear view mirror at a problem, to try to get ahead of that. And not only to avoid problems, but to make what I do better and to build my business, right? So I really focus on building my knowledge and revisiting what I'm doing and investing in me at this time of the year. And for me, I would not say this is the funnest part of being in business. Sometimes I have to do stuff that I really just don't want to do. And steering away from things that typically draw, particularly flower farmers and gardeners this time of the year, is the fun stuff. You need to steer clear of the seed catalogs, the plants, and the bulb catalogs, because you have to focus on this stuff that really might make a difference for your business. And this not only aligns my business to survive, but to thrive, and it ensures its future and sustainability. And I have some examples for you, because when I was sitting here thinking about this morning, I thought, and I even know people outside of owning a business, how they had to pay a price. My daddy used to always say, he had this rule when we were growing up. If we wanted something major, like let's just say a puppy or a kitten or an aquarium was one thing I wanted, a big aquarium, not just a little 10-gallon, put it in the corner of your bedroom. Whenever you would ask him, he'd say, no problem. Come back to me in 30 days, and if you want it as bad then as you do now, we'll get it, And so he also taught us that was the price I had to pay. I had to wait 30 days and either remind myself that I really wanted that thing, or it just kind of disappeared, right? Well, there's always a price to pay whenever you want to gain something, get something better. And here are my 3 examples. The first one is a brother-in-law. He's not in business. He was actually a business major and worked for a big employer here locally, NASA. We're right here in NASA. I have a lot of family members that actually work in NASA. And when he had a young family, he had 2 young children, toddlers, and I'm not sure if his wife was pregnant then or not. He had the opportunity to either stay kind of in his position, or he had the choice to go back to school to get his master's. Well, did I just say he has 2 little kids? And it was really gonna be a big price for him to pay to go back to school with the age that his family was, right? But for him to really advance at his job, he was going to have to pay a price. He was going to have to make a choice and make it work. And he did it. It was hard, but they made it through it, and they're so very happy they did. Here's another great example. Ellen Frost. She just told me this a couple of weeks ago. Ellen is moving away from the shiny object in her business. Ellen Frost owns Local Color Flowers, which is a design studio that does, it's not a regular brick and mortar. She does everything that a florist does, but they do it all with local flowers. And something they've done for many years are lots of big weddings. And they have decided to step away from the big weddings, which I call the big shiny objects, the ones you think you're going to make so much money on, the ones that are the most glamorous, right? They have made a decision to step away from big weddings. What's the price she's paying? She's scared, right? She is choosing to turn away potential work for her business. And then I think of Gretel and Steve Adams. I can still remember we were in Texas at a conference. I was speaking after them, and Gretel and Steve were doing the program before me. They own Sunny Meadows Flower Farm. If you don't follow them, and Ellen, you need to definitely check them out. They grow in like 18 structures, have amazing videos on their Instagram feed for you to follow along. Incredibly instructive. The mums right now are amazing. Anyway, Steve and Gretel were doing the program before me, and they were sharing how to do an enterprise budget. And the way that they opened their program up was that Steve and Gretel, so they were probably, let's see, that was probably 10 years ago, maybe 8 years ago that this happened. And this was right in the beginning years of when they were really ramping up their business. I think they've been growing for 16 years now. And they were really ramping up their business. And what they figured out was that they were looking at their expenses versus their cash flow. And they saw that they were going to actually run out of money before their big crops came in, which led them to learn how to do an enterprise budget. So what did they do? They buckled down, and this is hard work, y'all, doing an enterprise budget. It is not fun. Buckled down and did it because it was a ton of work, but they wanted to save and build their business. So they paid the price. They did it. And my most recent lesson, and as a reminder, I've been at this for 25 years. And with my why plant more if you aren't making the most of what you have? If you aren't harvesting and selling it all, I learned this past year that we really paid the price because we weren't cutting our garden clean, which started this whole, it was like jumping off a cliff with our cutting gardens. All of a sudden, my gardens weren't full of fresh, clean flowers. So I had to really pay the price to have this demonstration garden where we wanted it full of more flowers so they weren't being cut on a regular basis, right? But the payoff came really fast for me because what I learned by allowing my gardens to not be cut twice a week, to keep them fresh and clean all the time, I quickly learned what most people suffer from and why they never understand and embrace and understand how an annual cutting garden it can be so profitable. And it's because they kind of do what I did this past summer. I had a high price to pay. And I want to just talk about, this is my lesson. This lesson that I learned about that is what I just really want to give a big shout out as the lesson that you need to learn if you don't already know this, okay? Is why grow on more square footage when you aren't utilizing your existing space to the max. And I'm telling you, I see it over and over again. You go to a farm, you go to somebody's garden, and you see just so many flowers. It's like a cutting garden. A cutting garden, y'all, should be green. It should not really have flowers in it. In the summer, if you're growing coxcomb and zinnias, those are flowers that need to be fully developed, and other celoseas. So those were going to have color. But you should only have fresh, clean flowers that are being cut on the next harvest. There should not be old flowers in your garden. And if there are, that garden space has already started to get sluggish. Until you are cutting clean your beds twice a week, you're cutting everything that is at the proper stage, you have not experienced the cutting garden dynamic. The harvesting is what keeps these beds healthy and producing. So falling into this trap of not clean cutting the garden generates beds that first it's not very significant, but then you start noticing they're kind of limping along and they're very quickly full of old flowers that you either waste a lot of time looking through trying to find the fresh clean flower that you're going to cut, But what happens more often is that bed is written off as done before it's ever even really gotten started. Now, I'm not talking about one and done beds, y'all. I'm talking about the majority of branching annuals can produce for several weeks, many weeks. So that just really brings us to the issue with this. The lesson that you may not have learned yet is that all of a sudden, more work has now become a part of your life with less harvesting potential. Meaning, if we didn't harvest that bed, if we never got to it because we had no time, guess what? Now you really have created more work for yourself because you miss the value of that bed that's already been started, already been planted, already been grown, and you've missed the value of work that's already done. And I'll just rabbit hole is, I'm so bad about doing. This is why so many people are not profitable, y'all. They are not embracing the true cutting garden dynamic. They waste so many flowers and so much time. So if you haven't realized the output of that bed, you haven't reaped the dollar bills that's coming out of that bed, okay? The whole concept of a cutting garden is to continually produce flowers. What my goal was is to learn how to milk a bed for all it's worth. And I'm talking about also recognizing when it's time to rip that bed out. I'm not saying take it to the end. I'm talking about learning how to milk a bed for all it's worth because it is far less work and more profitable than feeling drawn to plant another bed and another bed. And I'm not also saying not to succession plant. I'm telling you that I see people having beds that were never properly harvested and taken care of, that they really miss the opportunity. I so often hear people say, work smarter, not harder. I think it is really hard to get smarter. And that's the underlying reason why so many of us do not do it. Because it takes time, it takes focus, and friends, it takes money. Things many of us aren't willing to give up and do. So back to those people that I listed, Richard gave up his family time for that short period, for that period of time. He sacrificed some of that. Ellen had to let go of opportunities, knowing it was the best way for her to make her business sustainable as she looks into the future. Gretel faced a big old hard job that was a lot of work, but she did it and saved their business. And I was willing and determined to do what others said wasn't possible, to build a profitable business on a tiny flower farm in the middle of the city. And to do that, I think I was forced to cut my bed so much because I was so desperate for more flowers all the time. And then all of a sudden I realized that's exactly what my gardens needed to thrive and produce even more. And it has led me to spend the winter getting smarter so I don't have to work harder. And that just sounds like such cute slang, right? Don't work harder, work smarter. But friends, there's a price to pay for that. And as we head into winter, this is the time of the year. I don't read every book that comes down the pike. I read books that make a difference. I want to read, 5 books or 5 courses that I watch over and over again or read over and over again because they are so full of great information that I get more and more from them every single time I revisit them. I am still watching the online course that I took on online courses, on how to make online courses that I took in 2017. That person doesn't do it anymore. So I have no choice but to go back, and every time I go back and watch it, it's like I don't even remember hearing that the last 10 times I've watched this course. You just don't know what you don't know. You just, I'll tell you the other thing, the one phrase that I said, just because you didn't know about it doesn't mean it doesn't apply to you. As I'm in school right now with my students, we've just come out of week 1. I just did the Q&A. And one of the things that I offer in my course, I talk about why you have to have insurance the day you sell your first flower for $1, because that means you're an official business then, and that changes everything. Your home, your farm, everything becomes liable at that moment, the minute you take a dollar bill for one of your flowers. And I was so affirmed this week. If you don't get it, there's a free magazine called Grower Folks. I think it's Grower Folks. I'll try to put it in the show notes. It's a free subscription. And it's like a big newspaper that comes. And in there this time was an article about farmer liability, and exactly the case study that I exactly tell my students is in there. And this is it in a nutshell. That the example they gave, which was a true story apparently, was there was a farmer who was farming something, and they were going to have an event and invite about 20 other farmers to come over to their farm for like a meeting or a conference or something. And they didn't have insurance. And they came over and everything was fine. And I'm actually not remember now. I think somebody tripped and broke their leg. No, I think they had pigs, and there was children that were brought to the conference also, or to the meeting, I guess we'll say. And they were messing around, and a man fell into one of the pig pens or one of the livestock pens, and he broke his collarbone. And so, of course, he went to the hospital and they fixed his collarbone. And exactly what example I give is what happened. When the health insurance company found out that he was visiting a business, when you sign up for insurance, you might not read in the fine print that you give up your right. You give your right to the insurance company to sue on your behalf. So that means that when the insurance company found out that that man that they paid for his health fix, his collarbone, was actually at a business, guess what they did? They turned around and they sued that farmer to get the medical bills paid. It is not up to you. It's not up to the people that come to your farm. It is totally out of your hands. That's why I have the phrase, just because you didn't know about it doesn't mean it doesn't apply to you. And by getting educated and gaining your knowledge, this is just one little BB in the Astrodome. There are so many other things like this. And just because you didn't know doesn't mean you are exempt from it. So it is your duty, the day you become a business, that you have to have reliable resources to go to. That's why we just so love having mentors, and that's one of the things that we build our online courses around, that you should have somebody to go to. We have those closed optional alumni courses that your classmates are in there, much more seasoned growers, as well as your instructor. And because, friends, this goes on for life. I am still learning, 25 years in. And I've been in business longer than that, but that's how long I've been flower farming. So friends, I hope this has inspired you to, first off, invest in yourself. That is the best money spent. One of our courses opens up next week, Gretel and Steve's Growing Cut Flowers in Hoop and Greenhouses. You just do not know how many mistakes, bad decisions, money wasted that you'll save. I mean, especially when you're talking about something like this of investing in structures and high risk crops, meaning high investment crops, and when to schedule them and where to put a greenhouse and what to do about pests. And I mean, I just don't know how people do that without having guidance. And I'll tell you what happens. Many do it, sadly, and after a couple, 3 years, they fail and think flower farming's not profitable, and that's not true. It's the fact that they weren't equipped with the proper knowledge. Friends, knowledge is power, and the winter time, the downtime of the year, if the winter is that time for you, is the time to gain your knowledge. Friends, if you are enjoying this podcast, I'd appreciate it so much if you would drop us a review on the app that you're listening on, wherever you get your podcasts, and share it with a friend. We really appreciate that. Love for you to join me on Fridays or whatever day of the week our live shopping show is appearing. Currently, it is on Fridays inside the Gardener's Workshop live shop, and you can get that from your phone's app store. So, friends, until we meet again, see ya over at thegardenersworkshop.com. Ciao. Hey, friends, I just want to share some customer review submissions about Steve and Gretel Adams of Sunny Meadow Flower Farm's course, Growing Cut Flowers in Hoop and Greenhouses. This is what A&D Turner had to say. I love this course. I'm a total beginner and just set up a brand new high tunnel. Now what? I was so overwhelmed, and this course was perfect. I only wished I had taken it before I set up my system. But no worries, there are many right ways, many ways were discussed, and I now have ideas for future plans. So the course gave me so much more knowledge than I expected, everything from start to production. Every question I asked was answered in the live chat. I had to miss one of the live chats, but it's available now for viewing. I loved being able to do the coursework as I had time. I love that I can go back and view the videos anytime. I appreciate learning from growers who have had experience and basically gave me all of the knowledge, tips, and tricks to succeed. And friends, this is kind of what we're hearing over and over again. Check out Steve and Gretel's course, Growing Cut Flowers in Hoop and Greenhouses.